Thanks everybody for joining our presentation today. We're going to be talking about how to set up great looking forms in SharePoint. And I'm going to give you examples. First of all, I'm going to demonstrate some examples of things that you can do, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can set that up. Before we jump into the presentation, just a couple of things I want to mention. We definitely are interested in your questions. Use the GoToWebinar chat interface in your sidebar, and we've got people who should be able to help out with that. What we're going to do is basically go through this presentation. After this is done today, I'm going to make a recording and post that. If you want it for later reference, we'll have that in our website. Please try to stay towards the end. We are going to do a shirt giveaway today. We've got cool InfoEyes embroidered shirts, so love to mail those off to one of you guys after our presentation today. With that being said, we'll go ahead and jump into our presentation. I think you'll enjoy this. We've got some fun topics to go over. Okay, so let me just first talk about my background. I am a SharePoint developer and consultant, and my background with InfoEyes, I was first a customer and have really gotten quite a lot out of their product. And as I've become more involved with that, I've had the opportunity to work with the InfoEyes team. Before that, I was a .NET web developer. I'm very Microsoft focused, and I pretty much work exclusively on Microsoft related solutions. Just a little bit about InfoEyes. This is a forms solution, and a major part of this platform is making it very easy to use. So this is a no-code platform, and it's very accessible, embedded right into the SharePoint user interface. As a team, we really have fun working with our customers, helping them, and trying to improve and continuously look for ways to make our product even better. All right, so let's get into the topic of today, which is about basically the SharePoint user experience. I will be the first one to tell you that I'm not a fan of what you get with SharePoint out of the box. It's very plain vanilla. There's a lot of great functionality and things that you can do with SharePoint, but at least initially doesn't look very good, and there's a lot of terms and phrases that I like to use a lot, which for me describe what it's like for users working in that environment. One is the wall of text. When you tend to navigate around in a SharePoint environment, everything's about lists, and you tend to see those kind of plain black and white screen with a huge pile of text on the screen. Not a very compelling user experience in any way. So that's really something we want to avoid. The out-of-the-box SharePoint form, not very interesting to look at. Certainly it's not anything that would make me excited to use as a user. This is what you get when you just create standard lists in SharePoint. Even with the new user interface updates that Microsoft's doing, it's still a pretty bland experience. Not very helpful to the user. Not something they're going to be very interested to use. In SharePoint, every page looks very much like the other. So I kind of have my picture here of these clones. This is conceptually how I think of SharePoint without customization. Everything just looks the same. Makes it confusing and kind of a maze to navigate because there aren't obvious ways to know where you are in SharePoint. So these are kind of some of the problems with SharePoint that hopefully we'd like to avoid, and we'd like a good way to combat those problems. All right, so let's talk about an approach to go against some of those issues that I just showed. So in these next couple of slides, I wanted to just talk about going from your standard out-of-the-box SharePoint to using InfoEyes to do some things to improve that user interface. So in SharePoint, in Forms, you have no ability to have a custom header on top of the form. You'll see that we can have a full custom header on the form, which makes a significant impact with InfoEyes. The help text is just a plain text right under the field. It's not dynamic in any way whatsoever, not a compelling experience at all. We can make something that's substantially improved using the InfoEyes tools. If we want to insert any kind of images or extra elements in the forms to guide users, we really have no way to do that with SharePoint out of the box outside of going into an external tool such as SharePoint Designer, which is pretty much a developer activity. With InfoEyes right in the SharePoint interface, you can insert helpful information and pictures and things of that nature, and it's quite useful to design an interface that's going to help your user. In SharePoint, in terms of the form design, within the SharePoint UI, they don't really provide any ability to do that. Again, you'd have to go into SharePoint Designer, and it's really a developer function, so for the most part, very inaccessible. In InfoEyes, you'll see there's user-facing tools that are no-code, and you can do some customizations and really change the look and feel of the forms using that setup. Okay, some more things. I talked about the wall of text, just these plain text fields you see in the list view. In SharePoint, there's no icons whatsoever in those dashboard views. In InfoEyes, we do have icons which we can put on drop-down pickers, for example, so you can have something meaningful. You can have indicators to help your users identify, and it makes for a more interesting interface. There's no kind of progress bars or indicators with out-of-the-box SharePoint, and of course we do facilitate that with our tools. And you just get a single column form with SharePoint, no configuration to change that. And with InfoEyes, you can have a tabbed interface and multiple columns. And then there's no way to embed images, as I mentioned, so you will have the ability to do that. Okay, just real briefly, I just want to talk to you about how the design process works in InfoEyes. It's a simple sequential process. Basically, the first thing you're going to do, of course, is you're going to create your SharePoint lists and the fields within it. At that point, you can get into InfoEyes settings from a design view, and you can set up a tabbed interface. You can security control the fields. At that point, apply validation if needed. And then if you want to do some business logic, InfoEyes does provide functionality to do things that you would otherwise do with SharePoint workflow. Naturally, with these tools, you want to have some email templates with this, and InfoEyes has an outstanding tool set to set up those templates. And then the last thing you might want to do is have some PDF printouts in your report. So that's some of the process and functionality that InfoEyes would provide. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to one of our technology partners. One of our new initiatives, we partner with ClabbyOn, which is a SharePoint charting software, enterprise-level software that is fantastic and fits very much within our topic today, talking about creating a compelling interface. So I'm going to hand it over to Vikas with ClabbyOn. He's just going to spend a few minutes to tell us a little bit about ClabbyOn and how that could also help you.
Thanks for the opportunity, Will. It's amazing to partner with InfoEyes to enable a lot of these business users make a lot from SharePoint. As you rightly mentioned, the whole idea is to make sure that you make the experience of SharePoint beautiful from the customer in the experience. A little bit about ClabbyOn for all of us, right? It lets you visualize, explore, monitor, and share all of your data without a single code, all right? Great, everyone. So as we all understand, agree, visualizing data is the key for all of us, right? It helps us uncover insights and make sure that we take informed decisions. And I'm sure that with InfoEyes and ClabbyOn, you can use much more with your data right in your SharePoint environment. As Will has rightly mentioned on this slide, one of the best part is how well these products fit together. Working on InfoEyes plus ClabbyOn is a breeze, especially because both of these are code-free tools, making it the best bet for all business users, right? So the power of InfoEyes and ClabbyOn, you can implement all of your processes and top it off with state-of-the-art dashboard and reports. And I'm sure that Will is going to share a small presentation about how easy it is to use both of these products together in the later half of the webinar. So please stay tuned. And thanks again for the opportunity, Will. I look forward for this.
Super. Thank you so much, Vikas. I appreciate that. ClabbyOn's a fantastic charting product, and we're going to get to see how that works. I will comment that in SharePoint Consulting, I've used these solutions, these platforms together, both InfoEyes and ClabbyOn, and in both cases, it's very easy and intuitive to build solutions for your environment. So we'll get to see how this all fits together in our presentation. Okay, and before I wrap up, we'll jump into SharePoint now. So there's a lot of features in InfoEyes. I just want to mention briefly, it is available fully for on-prem or Office 365. It does provide calendar tools. I had mentioned there are KPI indicators. You'll see that in the presentation. There's full reporting capabilities and custom dashboards, an advanced search tool, there's a signature field, and one nice setup, we'll see in our demo, you can do associated items where you can create kind of like database functionality in your list. So lots of great tools and features built into this in addition to the look and feel that we're showing in our presentation today. Okay, let me jump into InfoEyes so I can actually show some of these examples. So what I'm going to do, just to dive in, I want to first show you examples of things that we have set up, and then I'll kind of explain how you would do some of these things with InfoEyes. Now, I will confess I'm more a nuts and bolts guy. The examples I'm showing you aren't necessarily the greatest colors. You know, I talk to my wife sometimes and she asks me about colors in rooms, and I have to admit I don't have any idea. But I do know that just plain white screens with black text are incredibly boring to look at. So what I'm showing you isn't necessarily what you have to do. The key thing I want to demonstrate is that you have the ability to insert these visual components and configure it to whatever your design might be. Okay, so let's get in here. Let's first talk about the header. I mentioned to you that with SharePoint, normally there's no header, and I see this as a great opportunity for you to get the attention of your user, have some obvious visual indicators. So I have a dynamic header here with some text, and it's shaded. What's interesting about this is that color that I'm showing is actually keyed to the status of this particular record. So it's not just to look pretty, it's actually demonstrating a concept to the user. It's showing them that this project is in an in-progress state, and I have different colors depending on that state. So for example, if I'm in hold, that would change to red, something like that. So it can be a way to indicate more information. One thing you should definitely want to take advantage of, if we could change the form based on information coming in. So one key concept would be, depending on user inputs, you may want to make the form change real time. So if you'll notice, if I change department to training, I could actually make a field or entire section show up specific to that. What you would never want to do to your users is present them with a bunch of fields that don't apply to the specific situation that they're in. So we do have controls, and that does create a nice user experience if you show your users just the information they need based on the information that's being put into the form. In-context help is a really important concept to me. As a user and as somebody working in many, many different pieces of software, I can tell you that the last thing that I want to do is go and open up a PDF manual that may be hundreds of pages long looking for information. Realistically, your users are going to want help when they're in the process of using the form, and the best user experience you can give them is to provide help in context, right at the time they're doing it. You want that immediate information for them. With SharePoint, of course, you just have plain text. What's nice with InfoEyes, I can have a hover help. If you notice, when I hover over this question icon, I have formatted, spaced, and bolded information, which gives the user very specific information about how to use this tool. This is great for administrators of the tool. If their user's getting hung up, it's just as simple as letting them know to hover over the help for that field. Because that's out of sight normally, I'm not inhibiting the advanced users who already know that information. But for the people who are new and need to use the tool, they can do that. So with SharePoint out of the box, I would have to do something crazy with JavaScript and scripting, and it would be pretty difficult to pull that off and probably difficult to maintain. With the InfoEyes tools, I'm going to show you how you can set that up, and I could use that type of functionality throughout the user interface. So that one's very important. In terms of styling the form, we can use CSS, or we can use just some basic options to change that. You've seen that I've added a gradient background. I have a drop shadow on the outside of the form. I have some styles that indicate where I am. The tabbed interface is a key one. We're going to have a lot of information, and as I mentioned before, we don't want to overwhelm the user. I don't want to show them 50 fields all at one time. That's a bit intimidating. However, if you create these tab sections, they can proceed logically through the form. So that's a lot better story for our users. Multi-column layouts, we can do that however we want with InfoEyes. So I could have 2 columns or 4 columns or 6, depending on the kind of information that's being put in. I'm not just stuck with doing 1 column only. The process of a business tool is very important. I really like to use a third-party tool that's free. It's called Draw.io. You can go into a website and you can create kind of like a Visio-style diagram very quickly and simply. I feel that users understand the tool so much better if you can show them a diagram of how the process works. So I have that embedded in this interface, and what's cool is I have it set up to show a version of that picture which matches up with the current status. So this is an in progress. So this is a great way to, provide a simple concept for people who are new to the tool, and they'll be able to see clearly. So much better than just plain text describing this process in an external manual. Another great piece we could do is provide a formatted history section. It's natural that, especially with a project or something like that, you'd really like to know a history of everything that's happened with that record, and ideally we'd like to have a tool that can help us to do that. So that's another way we can guide our users and provide a better user experience. Okay, let's jump into the InfoEyes interface. I really want you guys to understand why this is exciting to me and why I believe it's so easy to set these things up. And this is really what makes this product so effective. I mentioned to you that it's directly in the SharePoint interface. Notice I've got that dashboard that has those icons and indicators. That's so very important to create that good experience. All I have to do is go to the list and open the ribbon toolbar, and I look for these colored puzzle pieces. Really easy to spot. This is going to show up in your interface when you've loaded in the InfoEyes toolset. This takes me to the InfoEyes hub. This is the jump-off spot that lets me do everything that I've showed you in terms of customizing the form. On the right side, you have a reminder which provides you, as I mentioned just a second ago, in-context help. We've got in-context help for InfoEyes. I've got a support ticket button. I've got the latest updates coming from InfoEyes. So I have a lot of helpful information and training information right on that interface. So this is going to be fantastic the first time you're trying to work with these tools. So tabs and tab permissions is really kind of a key spot as far as doing setup. Earlier I mentioned to you the first thing you do is create your list and fields. The next thing is create these tabs. It's incredibly simple to do that. All I have to do is just put in the name of my tab, and I can add it into this interface, and I can also set up the columns. I can have as many tabs as I want, but this is how I break it into logical sections. As I mentioned, you see there's no code involved at all. I just pick the tab, and all the fields from my list show up in the user interface, and I can just double click on something, and boom, it shows up on the right. I've got a drop-down picker to change the sequence on that. just incredibly easy to use. Not really any hard concept I have to know to assign fields to tabs. I mentioned the fragment functionality. So these are pieces of information, snippets, if you will, that you can put into that form to help your user. What's so great about this, naturally your business needs are all over the place, but this is how you can guide that user and give them what they need. This can be a picture, a diagram, formatted text, and anywhere mixed in your interface with those other fields. So this is going to be a fantastic tool to let you do in-context help. This is using a visual editor. I promise you that you do not have to use code. You can if you want. If you like HTML and CSS, you can slip into a code view, but it's just very simple. I have this visual interface, and I can do things like change background color and things like that, and format it however I would like. All right, so some of the styles you saw, the drop shadows, the tab colors, things like that. So there's kind of a standard advanced mode to this, and initially, naturally, you want to take care of the standard settings, and what you want to do is experiment with your form and see how these affect that. So the dynamic headers controlled by this title field. What's really neat about this is I can insert field information. That's what makes it dynamic. So in our case, what it's doing is inserting the name of the project and the current status. So it's not just a static piece of information there. We provide 6 different distinct types of themes for your form, which you can change just by going to the simple drop-down picker. So that's a good starting point, and very likely one of those themes is pretty close to something you like to do. What's great is that this is much more polished, and it's going to be more interesting than just the out-of-the-box SharePoint setup. So that can be kind of a simple, easy starting point. As far as the help text, this is where you can do the pop-up and get the type of help that I showed in there. As far as some of that styling and things like that, you can import a style sheet here, or you can apply styles using that style section, and basically you just add those in there, and when I'm done with all this, I can close out. There's all kinds of different settings areas in here. One thing I want to show you real quick that I use in just about every single solution that I build in SharePoint is this color choice field. With this field, this is really setting us up to make for a very nice dashboard. I mentioned the icons to you, and what's awesome is right here in the interface, I can pick from 250 different icons. So already in here is really an icon for just about any type of situation that I can think of. If for some reason you want to load in your own icons, you can do that too. But those make such a great difference. In my experience, I always use these instead of the regular SharePoint choice fields, and that's what lets us end up with those really nice looking dashboards. Another thing I want to show you real quick, I'd showed you that section which would show up conditionally based on the answer to a question. The way that I can do that is by setting up advanced column permissions. You notice all I'm doing is clicking in through a couple screens. I'm still right here in SharePoint in my site. In our case, what we were looking at is making a question show up regarding training depending on whether that was category. So we have this training instructor field that we want to show. All I had to do to set that up is just create this simple role. Very easy to understand. I'm saying, please hide this when that department is not training, and then make it show up when it is. So this is a type of thing that you don't have to be a developer to set this kind of thing up. Very simple and intuitive to use. Okay, let me jump back real quick. Since we really don't want to keep you guys too long, I want to kind of move on to the next part of my demo. Here's another SharePoint site. I'm moving from Office 365 to on-premise SharePoint right now. You can see here's another dashboard that looks quite a lot different than you would typically see in a SharePoint dashboard. I've got progress indicators, countdown timer, signature field. I've got a priority indicator, all kinds of kind of interesting things to look at. And of course, I can sort on all of that information. So when I go into this kind of setup, I can, of course, set up charts. I mentioned to you earlier I wanted to show some ClabbyOn charts. This is keying off that data. One thing that's awesome about this, if I click on one of the columns for this ClabbyOn chart, it'll actually do a drill down, and I can have a chart within that. And in ClabbyOn, you can do more than 50 different kind of charts. What's especially appealing to me with ClabbyOn is it really matches the same pattern as Infowise. You can set up charts in a very intuitive interface without having to do any code whatsoever. And just like with Infowise, I can go through this sequential process through a setting directly in SharePoint to create those charts. Here's another chart you can do in ClabbyOn. This is called a Marimekko chart. Really interesting kind of thing. These are the things that managers love in presentations and PowerPoint decks, that type of thing. This is demonstrating two concepts at once. It's showing me the proportion of projects by department. So we can see we have a lot of engineering projects, not too many sales. And then within that, I can see the proportion of the status, how much of it's on hold versus in progress. There's so many cool kinds of charts. To me, a fun thing to do is even just a sandbox and try each of the different ones, but just lots of configuration. So a great thing that you can do to, once again, improve your user experience in SharePoint for users. And just to show you real quick, I'll do edit. This is a different tool, so you kind of see a different user experience in this form. I just want to demonstrate this just to kind of show how configurable this is. All right, thinking about it. Let me go on to that. There he goes. Okay, there's the signature field. That's kind of cool. That's a handwritten signature field. Here's the indicator fields you can see directly in the interface. Notice when I change status, the icon changes right away. So I have some nice indicators there. Different colored header. This is a associated items list. I mentioned to you, you can do this database-like functionality. So I have a sub-list directly in my form, so you can get this many-to-one relationship. Really cool kind of functionality that you absolutely couldn't do that with SharePoint out of the box. And then this is a different way to attach projects on there. Okay, so that's another example of a customized look and feel in the SharePoint form. All right, I do want to make sure I share some key information with you. Before I forget to do it, I do want to mention that we're going to be at the SharePoint DC conference in November. Also, we're going to be in the Chicago conference, SharePoint, in early December. So please make a note. If any of you guys are planning to attend those, please stop by our booth. We'd love to talk to you guys and answer any of your questions about Infowise. All right, so I showed you some interesting, compelling things that you can do directly in SharePoint where you don't have to be a developer and create a very different and interesting forms experience. So what's the next step? All right, let me tell you about working with Infowise. The first thing you're going to do if you get our product, I did want to mention we have this tutorial section. There's over 100 different articles in here that show you step-by-step how to use that functionality. So you're not going to be kind of floundering around in the dark trying to figure it out on your own. You've got lots of good information for that. And we have also got excellent training, hands-on training. One thing that is fantastic that we just started, and each of you can take advantage of this, for all of our customers, we now provide Ultimate Forms Kickstart training. It's a web training, really in-depth, 2-hour training. We show you soup to nuts, how to go from a blank SharePoint site to a full help desk solution, and it does use a lot of these design concepts in that. So you get that automatically. You don't have to pay anything extra to receive that training, whether you sign up for Office 365 or on-premise product. You can just sign right up for that training. Your whole team can sign up for the training, and we'll give you a recording of the training afterwards. So that's a really great value. Outside of that, we have more in-depth hands-on training. So we have foundation training and advanced. So lots of great resources to help you learn. You're not just going to be on your own. We can help you along to do this. So that's a page you can check out. So what you really need to do right now is you need to download the product and get it installed. Very simple to do that for on-prem or Office 365. So if you go into our site, what you would want to do is basically just select whether you're Office 365 or on-premise. And if you click the download button, it gives you exact instructions to do that. And I can promise you that you can have this up and running within minutes. One thing I like is that it's not limited in any way. Sometimes when you have a demo, it's kind of held down. You don't get all the functionality. There's something sort of annoying about that. But with this demo, you'll be able to explore the full product and really have the chance to evaluate it. So that's really a good next step if you think this can be a good solution for you. And you can just go on our site to get that. So that's most of what I wanted to show you guys today. If you're still in our presentation, we'll make sure to include you in the drawing for the shirt. We do our webinars once a month, so we'll be back in September, and we'll usually show kind of an example solution. So we'll show you something different if you want to check back with us at that time. We're happy to do scheduled demos with you individually. If you have a serious interest in the product and you really want the opportunity to speak with us one-on-one, we can definitely do that. You can contact us through our website or send an email. My email is willc@infoeyesolutions.com, or you can go to sales@infoeyesolutions.com and we'll be able to answer your individual questions. So that is everything I wanted to cover on the training. We'll keep the session open so that we can answer questions in chat, and as I mentioned later today, we will post a recording of our training session. So I really thank you guys for your time. I really hope that you'll consider this product. This is a fantastic way to improve your SharePoint environment, and I hope that I'll have the opportunity to speak with some of you in the future to work with you and to help you to begin to use this platform to develop a better experience in SharePoint. Thank you very much.